If you've been struggling to climb stairs lately, feeling your legs give out when you stand up, or noticing that simple walks have become exhausting, what I'm about to share could change everything for you in just a matter of days. This isn't about some miracle supplement or expensive treatment. It's about a common food that most people completely overlook, and the science behind why it works is absolutely fascinating. I'm Dr. Helen Brooks, and I've been practicing geriatric medicine for over 15 years. In my clinic, I see dozens of patients every week who come in worried about their declining leg strength. And what I've discovered through years of clinical observation might surprise you. But before we dive into this potentially life-changing information, if you haven't subscribed yet, I strongly recommend hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications so you never miss another health tip designed especially for you. If you find this video helpful, please leave your questions and video suggestions in the comments. I read every single one, and it helps me create more content to help more people just like you. Now let me tell you about someone who walked into my office 6 months ago. Margaret was 72 years old, a retired school teacher who had always been active and independent. She lived alone, took pride in her garden, and never asked anyone for help. But when she came to see me, she was visibly shaken. She told me that 3 months earlier, she had started noticing her legs felt heavy, almost like they were filled with sand. At first, she thought it was just fatigue from working in her garden. But then came the day that changed everything. She was carrying groceries up her front steps when her legs simply buckled underneath her. She didn't fall, but the terror of that moment, the feeling that her own body was betraying her, brought tears to her eyes as she recounted it to me. Margaret had stopped gardening. She had stopped going to her weekly book club. She was even considering selling her home and moving into assisted living because she was terrified of falling when no one was around. When I examined her, I found what I've seen in countless other patients, a pattern of muscle weakness that wasn't just about aging. It was about nutrition, specifically, a critical deficiency that's epidemic among older adults but rarely gets the attention it deserves. Now, you might be thinking this is about calcium or vitamin D, and while those are important, what I'm talking about is something even more fundamental. I'm talking about protein, but not just any protein. I'm talking about high-quality, easily absorbable protein that your muscles can actually use. And here's where it gets interesting. The food I'm going to tell you about contains not just protein, but a specific amino acid profile that's almost perfectly designed for muscle maintenance and recovery. But before I reveal what this food is, let me explain why so many people, especially those over 60, experience this frustrating leg weakness. Your muscles are constantly breaking down and rebuilding themselves. It's a process called muscle protein synthesis. When you're young, this process happens efficiently, almost automatically. But as we age, something called anabolic resistance develops. This means your muscles become less responsive to the protein you eat. You need more protein, and specifically more of certain amino acids, to trigger the same muscle-building response you got when you were younger. Now here's the problem that I see every single day in my practice. Most older adults are eating far less protein than they need, often because of reduced appetite, dental problems, or simply because they've been told for years to eat less meat for their hearts. And while reducing red meat can be beneficial, many people have swung too far in the other direction, leaving their muscles starving for the building blocks they desperately need. If you're still watching and finding this information valuable, comment a thumbs up below to let me know you're following along. Let me tell you about another patient, Thomas, who was 68 years old and had been a construction worker his entire life. This was a man who had built houses with his bare hands, who had always been strong and capable. But when he came to see me, he could barely walk from the parking lot to my office without stopping to rest. His daughter had to help him get dressed in the morning. He told me, with such sadness in his voice, that he felt like he was becoming a burden to his family. He had been to several doctors who had run tests, checked his heart, looked for neurological problems, but everything came back relatively normal. The diagnosis was simply sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, and he was told it was just part of getting old. But here's what those doctors missed, and what I see missed time and time again. When I looked at Thomas's diet diary, he was eating maybe 40 grams of protein a day, spread out randomly throughout his meals. For a man his size with his muscle loss, he needed at least twice that amount, and it needed to be distributed properly throughout the day. More importantly, he needed the right type of protein. So what is this food I keep mentioning? It's eggs. Yes, simple, affordable, accessible eggs. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You've heard eggs are bad for cholesterol, or you've been avoiding them for years. But let me explain why eggs are absolutely remarkable for leg strength and overall muscle health, and why the science on this is more clear than ever. First, eggs contain all 9 essential amino acids in the exact proportions your body needs. They have a biological value of 100, which means your body can use nearly all of the protein they provide. Compare this to most plant proteins, which have lower biological values and are harder for aging bodies to utilize fully. One large egg contains about 6 grams of high-quality protein, but it's not just about the quantity. It's about the leucine content. Leucine is an amino acid that acts like a switch for muscle protein synthesis. It literally turns on the machinery in your muscle cells that builds new muscle tissue. Eggs are rich in leucine, and when you eat them, especially in the morning, you're giving your muscles a powerful signal to start rebuilding and maintaining themselves. This is crucial for leg strength because your leg muscles are some of the largest in your body and require constant maintenance. But if that surprised you, wait until you hear about what else eggs do. They contain vitamin D, which is critical for muscle function and strength. They have choline, which supports nerve function and helps your brain communicate effectively with your muscles. They contain selenium, which protects your muscles from oxidative damage. And they have omega-3 fatty acids, especially if you choose enriched eggs, which reduce inflammation that can contribute to muscle weakness. Let me tell you what happened with Margaret, the retired teacher I mentioned earlier. After our thorough discussion, we developed a simple plan. She would eat 3 eggs every morning, prepared any way she liked. Scrambled, boiled, poached, it didn't matter. Along with this, she would have 2 more eggs at lunch or dinner, bringing her total to 5 eggs daily. We also made sure she was getting adequate calories overall, because you can't build muscle in a caloric deficit. And we added some gentle resistance exercises, just using her own body weight. I want to be very clear here. This wasn't just about the eggs. It was about addressing the fundamental nutritional deficit that was robbing her muscles of what they needed to maintain themselves. But the eggs were the cornerstone because they provided the highest quality protein in the most digestible, affordable, and versatile form. Within 1 week, Margaret called my office. She said she felt different. She couldn't quite explain it, but she felt more energetic. By week 3, she was climbing her front steps without thinking twice about it. By week 6, she was back in her garden, and when she came in for her follow-up appointment at 3 months, she walked into my office with confidence I hadn't seen before. She told me she had been to her book club, she had hosted a dinner party, and she was no longer thinking about assisted living. She was thinking about taking a trip to visit her grandchildren. Now, was it just the eggs? No. The gentle exercises helped. The overall improvement in her nutrition helped. But the eggs provided the foundation. They gave her muscles what they'd been crying out for: high-quality, easily absorbed protein with the perfect amino acid profile to trigger muscle maintenance and growth. Thomas had a similar experience. When I explained the science to him, he was skeptical at first. He said he'd been eating eggs his whole life, and it hadn't prevented his muscle loss. But when I looked closer, I found that he'd stopped eating eggs years ago because his previous doctor had told him they were bad for his cholesterol. For the past 5 years, he'd been having toast with jam for breakfast, maybe a sandwich for lunch, and a small piece of chicken at dinner. His protein intake had dropped dramatically without him even realizing it. We started him on 4 eggs a day, spread between breakfast and lunch. We also added some Greek yogurt and made sure every meal had a good protein source. Within 2 weeks, he told me he could feel his legs getting stronger. Within a month, he was walking to my office from the parking lot without stopping. By 3 months, he was doing light exercises at home, and he told me something that brought tears to my eyes. He said, "I don't feel like a burden anymore. I feel like myself again. Now, I need to address something important. You might be worried about cholesterol. For decades, we were told to limit eggs because of their cholesterol content. But here's what the science now shows very clearly. For most people, dietary cholesterol has minimal impact on blood cholesterol levels. Your liver produces most of your cholesterol, and it adjusts production based on what you eat. When you eat more cholesterol, your liver makes less. When you eat less, your liver makes more. Multiple large studies have found no significant link between eating eggs and heart disease risk in most people. However, if you have specific health conditions like familial hypercholesterolemia, or if you have diabetes and existing heart disease, you should discuss egg consumption with your physician. For the vast majority of older adults, especially those struggling with muscle weakness. The benefits of eggs far outweigh any potential risks. In fact, the risk of muscle loss, falls, loss of independence, and decreased quality of life from inadequate protein intake is much more immediate and serious than any theoretical cholesterol concern for most people. Let me share one more story that really illustrates the power of addressing this nutritional gap. Patricia was 75 years old and had been experiencing progressive leg weakness for over a year. She had been to physical therapy, she'd tried walking more, she'd even invested in expensive supplements. Nothing seemed to help. Her legs felt weak, she was unsteady on her feet, and she lived in constant fear of falling. When I met Patricia, I discovered she was eating a mostly plant-based diet. She had read that it was healthier, and while plant-based diets can absolutely be healthy, she wasn't combining proteins properly or eating enough total protein. She was getting maybe 35 grams of protein daily, and most of it was from sources with lower biological value. Her body simply wasn't getting the building blocks it needed. I suggested she add eggs back into her diet. She was hesitant at first, worried it would undo all her healthy eating efforts. But I explained that health is about balance, and right now, her muscles were suffering. We started with 3 eggs daily, and I taught her how to prepare them in ways she enjoyed. She liked them scrambled with vegetables or hard-boiled as snacks. The change was remarkable. Within 10 days, she reported feeling steadier on her feet. Within 3 weeks, she could stand up from a chair without using her arms for support, something she hadn't been able to do in months. Within 2 months, she was walking confidently again, and she told me she felt like she'd gotten years of her life back. Now you might be wondering exactly how to implement this. How many eggs should you eat? When should you eat them? Are there any risks? Let me break this down for you practically. For most older adults experiencing muscle weakness, I recommend eating at least 3 to 5 eggs daily, distributed throughout the day. Why distributed? Because your muscles can only use about 25 to 30 grams of protein at once for muscle synthesis. Eating more than that in a single meal doesn't provide additional benefit. So spreading your protein intake across meals is crucial. Having 3 eggs at breakfast gives you about 18 grams of high-quality protein. Having 2 more eggs at lunch or dinner adds another 12 grams. This creates multiple opportunities throughout the day for your muscles to receive the signal to maintain and build tissue. The best way to prepare them depends on your preferences and digestive system. Cooked eggs are easier to digest than raw eggs, and the protein is actually more bioavailable when cooked. Scrambled, poached, boiled, or fried in a small amount of healthy oil, all of these methods work well. If you have trouble chewing or swallowing, scrambled eggs or egg salad might be easier. If you're concerned about added fats, poached or boiled eggs are excellent choices. Now, are there people who shouldn't eat this many eggs? If you have a documented egg allergy, obviously eggs aren't for you, and you'll need to find alternative high-quality protein sources like Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or fish. If you have severe kidney disease, you need to work closely with a nephrologist on your protein intake. If you're taking certain medications, particularly some cholesterol medications, or have specific medical conditions, you should discuss any major dietary changes with your physician. But for the vast majority of older adults, eggs are safe, beneficial, and potentially transformative for muscle health. I want to emphasize something crucial here. This isn't a magic cure. If your leg weakness is due to a neurological condition, a vascular problem, or another specific medical issue, eggs alone won't fix it. You need a proper medical evaluation. But what I've found in my years of practice is that nutritional deficiency, particularly protein deficiency, is one of the most overlooked and most easily correctable causes of muscle weakness in older adults. Let me tell you about one final patient who really brings this all together. Robert was 81 years old when I first met him. He had been a marathon runner in his younger years, but over the past 2 years, he'd gone from running to walking to barely being able to move around his house. His family was convinced he had a serious neurological disease. They'd seen multiple specialists, had numerous tests, and everything kept coming back inconclusive. He was devastated, certain his active life was over. When I reviewed his case, one thing jumped out at me. His diet had changed dramatically after his wife passed away 2 years earlier. She had always been the cook in the family, and after she died, he'd been living mostly on frozen meals, canned soup, and crackers. He'd lost 15 pounds, not because he was trying to, but because he'd lost interest in food and didn't know how to cook for himself. His protein intake was shockingly low, probably around 25 grams a day. For a man his size, he needed at least 80 grams. His muscles were literally wasting away from lack of nutrition. I sat down with him and his daughter and explained that while we couldn't rule out other problems entirely, I wanted to try something simple first. We needed to get his protein intake up significantly. His daughter took over meal planning. She'd bring him breakfast every morning, 3 eggs scrambled with cheese and vegetables. For lunch, she'd prepare egg salad or hard-boiled eggs with a protein shake. Dinners included good protein sources like chicken or fish. Within the first week, Robert said he felt less foggy mentally. Within 2 weeks, he had more energy. Within a month, he was walking around his house more easily. By 3 months, he was taking short walks outside. By 6 months, he had regained most of the weight he'd lost, and his leg strength had improved so dramatically that he was able to start attending a senior fitness class. He never went back to marathon running, but he got his life back, and it all started with addressing a fundamental nutritional deficiency that had been overlooked by everyone else. The lesson here is profound. Sometimes the simplest interventions are the most powerful. We live in an age of complex medical treatments, expensive medications, and high-tech interventions. But sometimes what your body needs most is just the basic building blocks to repair and maintain itself. Your muscles are incredible structures, constantly breaking down and rebuilding, but they can't rebuild without the raw materials they need, and protein, specifically high-quality protein with the right amino acid profile, is the most critical raw material. Eggs provide this in a form that's affordable, accessible, and easy to prepare. They don't require special equipment or cooking skills. You can buy them at any grocery store. They last for weeks in the refrigerator. They're versatile enough to be prepared in countless ways so you never get bored. And they're packed not just with protein, but with a constellation of other nutrients that support muscle health, nerve function, and overall well-being. I want to be absolutely clear about something. I'm not saying that eggs are the only solution, or that everyone with leg weakness should just eat more eggs and ignore other medical advice. What I'm saying is that protein deficiency, and specifically the lack of high-quality, easily absorbed protein, is a massive problem in the older adult population that contributes significantly to muscle weakness, falls, loss of independence, and decreased quality of life. And eggs are one of the best, most practical solutions to this problem. If you're experiencing leg weakness, the first step is to see your doctor and get a proper evaluation to rule out serious underlying conditions. But while you're doing that, take a close look at your diet. How much protein are you eating each day? Is it high-quality protein that your body can easily use? Are you spreading it throughout the day to give your muscles multiple opportunities to receive the building signal they need? If the answer to any of these questions is no, then eggs might be exactly what you need to turn things around. Start with 3 eggs at breakfast. See how you feel after a week. If you tolerate them well, consider adding more throughout the day. Pay attention to how your body responds. Do you have more energy? Do your legs feel stronger? Can you do things that were difficult before? Many of my patients report feeling a difference within days. Some take a few weeks. But almost universally, when we address this nutritional gap, we see improvements. It's not about reversing decades of aging overnight. It's about giving your body what it needs to function at its best, to maintain the muscle mass you have, and to support the muscle rebuilding process that happens naturally when you're properly nourished. I've seen this transformation happen dozens of times in my practice. People who come in defeated, scared, feeling like their bodies are giving up on them, and then within weeks or months of addressing their nutrition, particularly their protein intake, they're walking taller, feeling stronger, and reclaiming their independence. It's one of the most rewarding aspects of my work because it's so simple, yet so profoundly effective. Remember Margaret, the retired teacher who thought she'd have to give up her home? She's still living independently, still tending her garden, still hosting her book club. Thomas, the construction worker who felt like a burden to his family? He's helping his son with small projects again, feeling useful and capable. Patricia, who feared falling every time she stood up. She's walking confidently, traveling to visit family. Robert, who thought his active life was over. He's attending fitness classes and enjoying a quality of life he thought was gone forever. These aren't miracle stories. These are examples of what happens when we address fundamental nutritional needs that have been overlooked. Your body wants to be strong. Your muscles want to function properly. But they need the right fuel, the right building blocks, to do their job. Eggs provide those building blocks in one of nature's most perfect packages. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Aging doesn't have to mean becoming weak. It doesn't have to mean losing your independence or living in fear of falls. Yes, our bodies change as we get older. Yes, we have to be more intentional about our nutrition and our movement. But with the right approach, with adequate high-quality protein, with gentle, consistent movement, you can maintain strength and function far longer than you might think possible. If you're struggling with leg weakness, if you're worried about losing your independence, if you've been told it's just part of getting old, I encourage you to take a close look at your protein intake. Talk to your doctor about whether eggs might be beneficial for you. For most people, they're safe, affordable, and potentially transformative. Before you go, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and have notifications turned on so you don't miss future videos where I'll be sharing more practical, science-based health information for those of you who want to age with strength and vitality. And please, hit the like button if you found this information valuable. Leave a comment below telling me about your experience with leg weakness, or share your success stories if you try this approach. Your comments help this video reach more people who need this information. Remember, this information is educational and isn't meant to replace personalized medical advice from your own physician. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diet, especially if you have existing health conditions or take medications. Every person is different, and what works for one person may need to be adjusted for another. But if you take nothing else from this video, remember this. Your muscles need protein to maintain themselves, and as you age, you need more high-quality protein than you probably think you do. Eggs are one of the best sources of that protein, packed with the exact amino acids your muscles need to stay strong. This simple dietary change could be the difference between declining strength and maintaining the independence and quality of life you deserve. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, where we'll explore more ways to age with strength, health, and vitality.